Check, check. Mr. Mayor, 6 o'clock.
Well then, I will then call the Riverside City Council meeting for Monday, July 7th, 2025 to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Denning?
Here.
Ms. Fry?
Here.
Mr. Joseph?
Yes.
Ms. Lomach? Mr. Maxfield?
Present.
Mayor Williams?
Here.
Move to excuse.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Joseph and a second from Mr. Maxfield to excuse our absent member. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Mr. Manager, any additions or corrections to the agenda as presented?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Joseph and a second from Mr. Brown to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. If you're able, please rise and join us to pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If we have any citizens tonight who wish to speak during the agenda or non-agenda item public comments, please fill out a form in the back and please turn it into the clerk up here in the front. We've all had a chance to look at the meeting minutes from our June 16th meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as published?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Denning and a second from Mr. Joseph. All those in favor of approving the minutes as published from the June 16th council meeting signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Madam Clerk, are there any slips turned in for public comment on agenda items?
None so far.
All right, we will endeavor forward into unfinished business, of which we have an ordinance and a couple resolutions. The first ordinance is a second reading for ordinance 25-0-867. Mr. Manager, could you give us a brief synopsis of what we're going to be talking about here?
Yes, this is a second reading and a public hearing regarding the supplemental that was discussed at the last couple of meetings. This would appropriate funds that allow us to move forward with getting in line for a new fire engine.
Move to approve.
Second.
Riverside City Charter allows for a ordinance to be read by title only unless a council member requests otherwise. Madam Clerk, would you please read this ordinance by title only?
Ordinance number 250867, an ordinance to make supplemental appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Riverside, State of Ohio, for the period January 1 through December 31st, 2025.
I will now open the public hearing for ordinance 25-0-867 at 6:03 PM. Anyone who'd like to speak on this, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Hearing no one and seeing no one come forward, I will close the public hearing at 6:04 PM for ordinance 25-0-867. Is there any further discussion among members of council? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Denning?
Yes.
Mr. Maxfield?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Fry?
Yes.
Mr. Joseph?
Yes.
Mayor Williams?
Yes. We will move into resolutions, of which we have 3. The first resolution, Resolution 25-R-3036. Mr. Manager, could you please tell us what we're voting on here?
Yes, this is our annual housekeeping resolution regarding streetlight assessments. The process we follow is the council usually adopts a resolution of necessity saying that we will assess the cost of the streetlights, residential streetlights, and that will be followed by an ordinance that will come in August, which will have the customary 2 reads, and then we'll be able to certify the assessments to the county.
Motion approved.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Maxfield and a second from Mr. Denning. All those in favor of Resolution 25-R-3036 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carried. The second resolution, Mr. Manager, is a then and now.
Correct. This is then and now to address water damage that we experienced here in Suite 100 of the 5200 building, as well as to the upstairs floor due to a water leak a couple months back. That was not related at all to the construction that's going on in the building, and as a result of that, we had to trigger a immediate remediation response. And so this then and now allows us to make good on that payment. To be clear, we do have the money. The money's been appropriated. It is in the budget. This is an accounting necessity to get council's blessing to move forward with paying that bill.
Move to approve. Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Denning and a second from Mr. Brown. All those in favor of Resolution 25-R-3037 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion approved. And our final resolution, Mr. Manager.
The easiest and most exciting, this resolution allows us to move forward with the actual fire engine purchase using the cooperative purchasing agreement described in the packet.
Motion approved.
More exciting than the one we just did.
Second.
I mean, fire engines are always exciting.
Manager's opinion will be asterisked in that minutes.
You got it.
We have a motion from Mr. Denning and a second from Mr. Maxfield.
The other way around.
We have a motion from Mr. Maxfield and a second from Mr. Denning.
Yes.
I was in the middle of my joke and they jumped right on it.
I know they did. They did not
And
want
my
to hear that
gavels
joke.
from the back, just
Oh, there was a joke?
that, see, everybody, the whole crowd erupted. Is there any further discussion for Resolution 25-R-3038? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Madam Clerk, are there any public comments, slips turned in for non-agenda items this
There
evening?
were none.
Okay, well, then we will move on to our discussion items, of which we have a couple, and I'll turn it over to the city manager.
Just one major one this evening, Mr. Mayor. I'm delighted that Wilpert is in attendance this evening, as well as our friends from the Montgomery County Transportation Improvement District, to provide an update or a preview on the Safe Streets for All draft action plan, a version of which I have circulated to council. But Mr. Nathan Fisher with Wilpert is here to kind of do a recap of the process that we've gone through so far, and then a bit of a preview of that planning document. Following this meeting, I will look to bring a resolution forward to council next month that would formally adopt that plan as presented. But I will turn the floor over to Mr. Fisher. Let me pull up the PowerPoint here. And Nate, if you can just give me a mic check. Yep, perfect. Awesome. Oops. All right, sir, take it
All
away.
right. Next slide. So again, Nate Fisher, I'm with Wolford. With me tonight, I've got John Wiley, and as Josh mentioned, our friends from Montgomery County TID sitting behind John there. Got 3 sections that we'll talk through on my agenda here. Kind of a high-level overview of the schedule, get us to where we're at today, overview of the actual action plan itself, and then talk about some next steps. So we began this journey back in October of 2023 when the city was awarded the federal SS4A grant, $700,000 grant with $175,000 in local match, so $875,000. Great job for the city stretching every dollar and maximizing it. The goal of the action plan is to prevent roadway deaths and serious injuries, and we'll talk about some of the steps that we've identified to get through that. We're at the tail end of our timeline. The agreement has a 24-month execution period on it, which I believe, Josh, that lapses in
End of August.
Thank
Yep.
you. So we're nearing the end of things, and we'll talk through. So we've gone through a number of different steps. The gray highlighted items on your screen are the elements that we have completed. The June there highlighted in the gold is kind of where we're at now. We've submitted our final draft of the action plan for your review and approval. And then, as Josh mentioned, be looking for council adoption of that so that we can meet the August deadline for federal highways. All right, so I was going to step through the different sections of the action plans. I've got a couple screenshots of the kind of the first cover page, if you will, of those sections, just for a little bit of frame of reference to get something hopefully to jog your mind for where we're at in the study as you looked through it. Not intending for you to be able to read those by any means. So the first couple sections are a little more administrative, if you will, and structure setting. So that's our introduction, our leadership commitment and goal setting, and our planning structure. So the introduction provides a very high level of the SS4A grant program and process. The action plan is actually the first step in the process. With the completion of an action plan and its formal acceptance, it sets the city or the agency up to be able to submit for additional funding through what they call the implementation grants. So you can get funds to advance design and advance construction. Kind of getting through this initial step checkbox, if you will, is a requirement of those future funding applications. And there's a set of criteria that Federal Highways has spelled out for certain elements that we have to have completed within the action plan to make that action plan eligible. And this resolution, or future resolution in August, is one of those elements. So central to the SS4A program is the Safe Streets approach, and I threw the logo up in the top right corner there. But really, it's talking about, creating road environments that are favorable for all users, ones that recognize that humans make errors, and, planning for them. It's also, I talk about it a little later too, but, the recognition that it's not acceptable to have deaths on roadways. They certainly occur, but if we start to say that it's acceptable, then that's the first step in heading down the wrong road, if you will. So that's kind of the high level of the program, if you will. There's two kind of cornerstones, if you will, to the program. Section 1 of the report talks about the leadership commitment and goal setting, describes the requirements of the recipient, in that case the city, to adopt Division 0 principles to eliminate traffic fatalities, severe injuries. You guys have all already done that process. And then Section 2 talks more about kind of a planning oversight structure that they require be established with each action plan. And that task force was comprised of members of the city, members of the community. We had Mad River City Schools there, RTA participated, and we also had at least one member from the public to represent some interests in that manner. So those are kind of the high-level oversight elements of the program. Oh, I'm sorry, go back one. Well, I was going to highlight. One thing that I'd say is unique to the City of Riverside's SS4A action plan is that when we submitted, we were able to narrow in and identify a corridor with that submission and that application. The way that this program is currently structured is that they are held more citywide or more regionally. So for example, MVRPC is currently going through one for their member regions. The city of Dayton is going through one for them citywide. So recognizing that, we did kind of take a half a step back, if you will, with this action plan, and we did look citywide. So you will see some graphics and some narrative in there that talk about the city of Riverside as a whole. And then we focused down into the corridor that we were awarded the funding for, which was from 35 up through Springfield Street. All right, now we can go to the next one. So Section 4, the safety analysis. This was kind of the heart and the meat of data gathering from what we all consider day-to-day safety. So we looked at the analysis citywide and in addition to within the corridor and identified hotspots. So on that right side of the screen is a map that you guys have probably all become familiar with. Same graphic that we used at many of the public meetings and the stakeholder meetings, but it's very easy to see where the clusters of crashes are within the city. Go to the next slide. A few other visuals that I'll point out. Crashes is obviously one of the easy data sources for us to pull. The table in the top left there kind of breaks down the crashes from a citywide standpoint. And I'll highlight the top couple real quick. The rear end crashes, those you often see are indicative of congestion along corridors. So, people coming to a red light, a stop sign, somebody following too closely, running into the back of them. Fixed object crashes, those are what we call run off the road crashes. So you veer off the road maybe to avoid a rear end, but you hit a sign, you hit a telephone pole, you hit a fence, that kind of thing. Angle crashes are ones that occur at intersections or where you have vehicles turning into driveways, crossing oncoming traffic. The latter of these two, the fixed object crashes and the angle crashes, I'll highlight as they are a current major focus of ODOT's safety program currently. They are really leaning into trying to address and reduce those because those crashes types of crashes are known to lead to more serious injuries. Additionally, we looked at speeds. So the image on the right highlights speeds based on street light data. It's a third-party data source that looks at the information that you get from your phone sends off for where you're traveling, how fast you're going, and data from cars to track vehicles and help predict speeds. So from the analysis and kind of known throughout the industry, the fatalities, the cause of crashes, especially the severe injury crashes and controlling speeds, those are among the top safety elements that need to be addressed within the safety study. And I'll highlight too, the crash data that we used is from 2020 and 2022 through 2022. The reason for that is the period of time that it takes for the system to get updated that we pull the crashes from. So if we wanted to see additional crashes, we can see things from 2023 and they may have 2024 in there at this point, but the data really lags. So that's why you kind of see, something that feels so far in the rears. With the updated data and just, being in and around the city, I know there are additional fatalities that have occurred that are not highlighted on this map. And through the process and the engagement with the task force, we've kind of understood what happened with those crashes and fatalities so that we can attempt to begin addressing them before that data becomes populated for us. All right. So the next couple of sections deal with public engagement. We had a public meeting back on June 4th, and there's a following slide on that I'll get to. Was here talking about our draft findings back in August 8th, and then we had a series of stakeholder meetings. So Josh, if you could click to the next
Those were
slide.
all in 2024, those
Correct.
dates. Yeah.
Correct. So the public meeting was held, hosted over at Mad River Local Schools. We had a good turnout. It was a hot, sweltering day, much like today, but you luckily have AC in here. Had a good number of folks show up, and then that was followed by a 30-day online comment period. City did a very good job in promoting that public comment period, and we were able to get almost 300 comments from the public, which is a lot of comments. Usually we're not that lucky with projects. We don't get that much feedback from the public. Get to the next slide. Then again, presented here, much of the content of the action plan we reviewed back on August 8th. And then, as I mentioned, we had a series of 3 stakeholder meetings to allow folks to work it into their schedule to come and provide us input. And those stakeholders included ODOT, MVRPC, Montgomery County Engineers Office, in addition to a handful, I think we had a few local business owners show up to those meetings that had property directly along the corridor, in addition to Wright Pat.
Yep, the base 2.
So Section 5 deals with equity. We looked at diversity within the city, so age, sex, racial, ethnic diversity. Looked at vehicle ownership, travel time, how long does it take residents to commute to their work, and how do they commute? A few things that I'll highlight. Our findings were that most residents have a vehicle. Roughly 95% have access to at least one vehicle. Most drive to work alone, so 81% drive to work alone. 1% ride the bus, and the average commute time to work is 20 minutes. For comparison, the state average is about 23 minutes, so fairly reasonable with what you would expect. Next slide. So policy, procedure, and changes. This section outlines some of the long-term items that the city should consider from a policy standpoint. So some of these include things that you've already done, such as adapting a Vision Zero commitment. And then it kind of creates a way to develop a data system that you can use for data-driven analysis. So for instance, I believe one of the things up there is to kind of take a yearly assessment of crashes and trends, so that you can continue to identify those hot spots and focus efforts to address those locations. So Section 7 deals with strategy, project selection. This section kind of follows the core principles of the SS4A program and those elements, making roads that are safe for all users, safe for all vehicles, traveling at safe speeds, and again, allow for the fact that everyone's human and they make errors. So let's plan accordingly so that when that happens, we hopefully reduce the severity of the errors that are made. So this section gets in and breaks down some of the individual projects. And if you could, this next slide, thank you. So kind of at a very super high level, this map is attempting to highlight the different possible phasing segments, if you will, along the Woodman corridor. There's a few things that spill out local to it along Airway. And in addition, it's kind of hard to see on this one, but north of Springfield Street, if we're able to do the things that we would like to do and some reconfigurations in that area, it might open up the possibility to repurpose some of the infrastructure that's up there so that a trail can get extended along Woodman to get you up and over and connect to the existing trail that's up at the road at Eastwood Metro Park. The final section, progress and transparency.
Nate, can I stop you real quick? Could you just go back
Yeah.
when you said that there could be a possibility of extending a trail? Are you speaking about the trail that's at Eastwood currently?
So at Eastwood, the entrance there's a trail that's along Woodman that heads to the north, and then it turns and goes into the park. Or
Correct.
you can cross the street and you come down kind of along the side through the water treatment facility that's over there and things. But the bridge is your limiting factor in the
Okay,
embankment
I see what you're,
slopes there.
I now
So-
connect in my mind what you're
Yeah, so
getting
if we
at.
can kind of scooch everybody over to the east a little bit, then we can repurpose that bridge deck to allow for a trail to get through there and then continue that trail down so it makes a more direct connection point.
Yes.
If someone was wanting to travel along Woodman, just going north-south, not weaving their way through the
Right.
parks.
Okay,
Like right now, the only way to get from the south side of town to the north side of town on a sidewalk would have to be going all the way down Springfield Street to like
way around.
way around and go down Valley.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
and through the city of Dayton, because like that Harshman corridor right there is like not very safe on a bike.
Yeah, I think there's
It's not safe at all. It's not
There's a
very.
unique opportunity right in that section to where it wouldn't be a complete triangle or circle, but you could make a loop, right? So you could make a big loop through the park, down along Woodman, hook around. And some of the things that we'd like to hopefully do is to kind of continue that to the south so that you can hit, is it Community Park?
Yep.
Get down to Community Park, maybe make a different loop, back up and around.
Yeah, connecting different community assets.
Yes.
All right, thank you. I appreciate you walking me through that.
Yep. So the last section, Section 8, progress and transparency, just talks about keeping things at the forefront. The recommendations that are in Section 6 from the revisit your crash data every year kind of thing. review the progress in working towards the recommendations that are included in this plan are the things that are talked about within Section 8. And that's pretty much the high-level overview of the action plan. Didn't want to get into a whole lot of specifics. We can field any questions, but kind of the next steps to where we go from here. We looking to put a bow on the SS4A action plan and then step off into some additional engineering and analysis to help us take those thoughts and those concepts, if you will, that were included in the action plan, further vet them to help determine which are the most applicable to addressing the different safety concerns identified. So that effort looks to begin here in August, run through probably through the end of January of next year. And then kind of with that, there's an environmental evaluation that needs to happen. We need to, do our homework from an archaeological standpoint to make sure that we know what environmental assets are within the project area that we would need to deal with, remediate, work around, that kind of thing. And then we kind of get into preferred alternative selection in June, work on a phasing plan, so that map that we just had up, further refine that, understand better the costs, the challenges of which, of the different phases, so that we can begin pursuing funding for the different, to keep advancing them forward. So it's not likely to be, we're another 12 months from now before we even really start any detailed engineering. We need to go through and continue to vet concepts. The pot of money, I don't know if you want to talk about the ODOT piece. So the pot of money that is going to be used for this feasibility study flows through ODOT. So we need to follow their requirements for a feasibility study. They've got a number of check boxes that we have not checked with the action plan. So this effort over the next 12 months will look to check those boxes to help us get to that preferred alternative so that we can start actual engineering on a solution.
That money is the money that we were awarded from Congressman Turner's office, that we will have access to, actually now, right? It was July when ODOT said we could, I believe.
Yeah.
So that money just became available to us last week, and that'll be the money we use to take some of these next steps first.
And I think that's everything.
All right, any questions for Nate or Josh? Is anybody else, any of his colleagues going to talk, or is it, if they have questions for Nate or anybody from the TID?
I think that's the bulk of the presentation, but certainly if folks have questions, we can get those answered.
I'll just start off by saying thank you to Nate, and thank you to the folks at Woolpert, and thank you to Vanessa and the TID. I've been able to become intimately familiar with a lot of these processes in the last 2 years working with Josh, and specifically on this project, when we were able to get an audience with our senators and with our congressmen. So the folks at Woolpert and the folks at the TID are really, really, really helping the city. And I just want folks to understand just how much that's made a difference for us to be able to land these funds and then to be able to continue to the next step and get more outside dollars brought into our city to improve infrastructure. So thank you, Nate. Thank you, Vanessa. Now, somebody grill them. Somebody ask them a tough question.
Well, I do have a, so the roundabouts have been a big discussion item around the community. Are those etched in stone, or are those just a concept right now?
It's a concept.
Okay,
Yeah, with
so,
the feasibility study, we will be looking at, so they're all at intersections, right? We'll be looking at signalized versions of those intersections and roundabout versions of those intersections. And then we end up building, we call it a matrix, if you will, that ranks the different intersection types. And then we'll say, we'll look at them from a cost standpoint. We'll look at them from, do they fit in the existing right-of-way? Do we have to get additional right-of-way? Are we achieving the safety benefits? Is one providing more safety benefit than another? All those things kind of get ranked, if you will. We typically use, if you think of the consumer reports, the circles that they have in there from a, filling them fully or
Right.
partially kind of thing. We rank them in that regard, and then you can kind of visually see then, okay, maybe this one has more safety benefits, but it's gonna cost
$10
gonna
million
cost
more.
And then there's a decision to be made, right?
Right.
Are we okay with the cheaper solution and it being less safe, or are we wanting to go ahead and move forward with the safer
Well,
option?
it depends on the percentage of safer,
Exactly.
right? If
Yes. And
if it's 99% just as safe, then, because I guess one of the big ones is that whether or not we replace the bridge and put a roundabout there, or whether we just replace the bridge and don't, because from what I saw, the boulevard concept starts right after that. And so whether or not, if it's going to cost us $5 million more to put the roundabout in than it is to put the bridge in, I don't know that that's a good solution to spending our money. But we're just, so what you're telling me is we're just getting to the beginnings of getting that information, whether or not these roundabouts are the answer or not the answer.
Correct.
And we need to get through these steps. Now, do they have simulations that will run different scenarios with
Yep.
different numbers of cars going through and things like that, so it'll kind of show us what's going to happen?
Yes, we build simulations. All of the simulations will be based off of the same volume of traffic, if you will. And then we can visually provide some videos where you can watch the cars come through and you can see, hey, this one is more congested. Look how much easier they move through this one. That kind of thing. So you get a visual representation
Right.
of what it is that we're saying when we say this one operates more efficiently than this one. Well, here's a visual.
Well, I work on simulators on the base, so I understand how simulation would, but yeah, it's just that today's technology gives us the ability to do things like that we couldn't do in the past. So you'll use our existing traffic count and use that and maybe even increase it by 10% based on.
Yeah, we coordinate the growth of the region
Right.
with MVRPC to see what they have in their models, and then we apply those to today's volumes to forecast.
And
them
we
up.
use the telephone information so we can tell how many people are, yeah, no, I get it. All right, thank you.
Yep.
Couple of follow-up questions to that topic. Would the cost of maintaining whatever solution we choose be part of the calculation?
Yeah, part of what the process that ODOT has us go through is we always have to compare everything to the no build. So that's, you do nothing. So with that, we would present a cost, and we know that there's some maintenance needs. So those would get built into that no build scenario. No build doesn't always necessarily mean hands off, don't do anything. There's some preservation things that need to be done. So we would include those in there, but then, like, for a no build, there would be no right-of-way needed, let's say, no additional expanding of the right-of-way, so that would get a green sticker, right, where maybe one of the other ones would have a yellow sticker.
What about future maintenance costs?
Yeah, we can do life cycle.
Okay. Second, would increasing accessibility to non-motor vehicle traffic be a consideration at all in that evaluation?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
All of the concepts that we dreamed up, include the addition of a sidewalk, if not a shared use path. So the shared use path is looking to check the box for bikes and pedestrians, whereas sidewalks are obviously just pedestrians only.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Nate, and thank you, team, for the work and continued diligence on this very big project for us.
Bless you.
Thank you.
And then after that, we have the always brief other items from the city manager.
Always brief, he says. So I do want to thank again Nate, Vanessa, Sam, and John for all your hard work over the last couple of years now of bringing this whole project to fruition. I think This is a great example about how our ability to build, develop, and maintain regional friendships and partnerships really bears a lot of fruit for our community, because a plan like this really lays out a set of principles that we can apply to how we want to move forward with our roadways, particularly the busiest one that we have. And if we had not done this work, we would be much further behind the 8 ball in terms of being able to figure out what to do next. And it would be a lot of really unpleasant short-term Band-Aid options rather than the comprehensive look that I think we all benefit from. So-
Without our partners at the table.
Correct. And who are instrumental not just in doing the work, but also helping to think outside the box about where do we go next when we look for funding? How do we put together these applications in a way that makes sense and tell that story so that it sells regionally and in Washington? I mean, these folks are a huge part of that for us. So thank you all very much for all your help. So I look forward to bringing a resolution regarding the draft action plan to you at the next meeting. And as far as other announcements go, just a reminder for folks that July, we customarily have one meeting in the month, which of course is tonight. So our next scheduled meeting is Monday, August 4th. That'll be at 6 p.m. Budget Committee is meeting tomorrow, so anybody who's interested will be in the front conference room at 6 o'clock p.m. I'll do an update on income tax and kind of a preview of basically what the budget process should look like this year. And then we are also in the middle of ramping up a lot of our communications about stormwater, and I'll thank both Katie and Michaela and Beth for all their hard work. There are 20 weeks of posts planned on Wednesdays. It is Wednesday Water Wisdom, so if you are on Facebook, check out the Wednesday posts. And again, this is part of a deliberate weeks, months-long effort to start that conversation about stormwater, its role and importance in our community, and how that relates to utility billing in the future. And that's all I have.
Okay. I'll make sure folks know that we do have an executive session planned for the last part of the meeting before adjournment. So we will have council member discussion, and then we will move into exec. And I will start with Mr. Brown.
Nothing huge. I did have a quick meeting and tour with Mike Betancourt this morning for the Black Barn Pickleball, and he took me just to walk around just the grounds, and everything's coming along beautifully. There's 8 courts are already set up and ready to go in there. They're putting up drywall and just getting things going. So they're aiming for the first or second week of August for a soft opening. So looking forward to seeing that open and bringing in a lot of people.
All right, Mr. Joseph.
Nothing.
I have a quick question for the manager as part of my discussion item. If folks are having issues with trash pickup, and I'm one of the citizens who has, we call Republic, but is there another way that the city would prefer for the folks who are on our side who are supposed to be enforcing the contract, for you guys maybe keep tally of how often these are occurring, if there's days that are missed and days turn into weeks, for example?
Yeah, I would say certainly feel free to call Republic, but you can also call us. Let us know, if you can let us know, of course, where you live and the general area that's impacted, whether it's the side of your street or your whole neighborhood, those sorts of things. We have been keeping tabs on where it's happening and also been in pretty constant communication with Republic to certainly advocate for and express some of the concerns that our residents have had about service delivery. What we're being told is that, generally speaking, this is a function of driver shortages and mechanical failures in the trucks. But having said that, we do have a contract through the end of the year, and I intend to hold them as accountable as we can. So feel free to give us a ring, give us the information when it happens, if it happens to you, and we'll add that to our list and proceed from there.
Great. Well, thank you for that, and also thank you to our fire department for their quick work on, I think it was Saturday morning
Correct. St. Helens?
at St. Helens.
Yeah.
My kids were a little upset the whole school didn't catch on fire, but fire department made sure there's going to be school in August.
Well, to be fair, part of it kind of did, but not the whole thing.
Not the whole thing, still going back in August. Mr. Maxfield.
Congratulations to our K-9 Tina on her retirement. The June 10th is going to be July 10th at
This
6
Thursday.
p.m. right here in the city office will be her retirement ceremony. So congratulations to her. I Had the experience to work with her when I was at Stebbins, and she is wonderful. It amazes me how intelligent and great she was, and she was good with students and staff, so well-deserved and well-earned. That's it.
Ms. Fry, Deputy Mayor.
Nothing.
All right, and Mr. Denning.
Josh, can you reiterate to folks when, if this timeline that we've got happens and we move forward and we get the fund, when actual construction would possibly, I mean, we're probably talking, what, 2029?
I mean, at the very earliest, probably, yes.
Maybe
So-
2030. So we've got a lot of, what people need to know is we've got a lot of hoops to jump through, and we got a lot of things to look at, and changes will be made. And don't get upset yet, because we haven't put a shovel in the ground, and we're looking at 5 or 6 years before we actually get started on construction.
Yeah, I think there is a future where maybe that is faster, but a lot of it is so up in the air because we need to take that next step to
Right.
figure out what's involved in all of this. And then some of it too is a function of what, if any, additional grant money we get awarded and what we can use that for. But under no circumstances is this a next year or a year after that kind of a project. I mean, and we will be sure to keep everybody informed as this moves along. But as Nate suggested earlier in the meeting, it'll take at least a year. It'll be this time next year before we really have our bearings using the money from Congressman Turner's office. about where
I
to
just
go
want to
next.
reiterate that
Yep.
to the public, that it's going to be a while. It took us forever to get Springfield Street done, and what we did on 35 took us, I think, close to 15 years to get the bridge to fruition. So nothing moves fast in the government, whether we want it to or not. It's more like pushing a rope. So I just want people to know that. I want to congratulate Tina on retirement again, and remind folks that you're all invited to her retirement ceremony. That'll be this Thursday at 6 o'clock in this facility. So
All right. Do we have a motion to go into
move to
exec?
go into executive
Second.
session for the reasons on the agenda.
We have a motion from Mr. Denning and a second from Mr. Maxfield. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Denning?
Yes.
Mr. Maxfield?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Fry?
Yes.
Mr. Joseph?
Yes.
Mayor Williams?
Yes. We're in exec at 6:43 PM. Thank you.